Yeah, structural steel, but also structural concrete. So that's
Great.
really the big benefit, is that we don't have to wait for cure time for the structural wood for wood to come up to its structural capacity. So yeah, we'll replace concrete in multi-story buildings and allow for quicker installation and construction. The company I work for, and the company that I'm part owner with, is a family business. We work on engineered wood products. So we make, very structurally significant products for all sorts of structures, from single family all the way to multi-story. In the past, we made primarily commodity grade plywood and structural wood products. So the stuff you would see on the outside and the inside of a home. So we make the walls, the floor, the roof that you would have for any type of single family home that you have out there, as well as a particular market for this type of product is for what they call, a 4/2 for multifamily. So it's a 4-story project over 2 stories of concrete. So those are really the markets that we try to target. In recent years, we developed our own product that is patented for product and process for an engineered wood product, where we make a mass timber panel out of veneer-based products. So we can create any structural element to a multi-story building. So, for instance, we just completed and topped out a 19-story all-wood structure down in Oakland, California. So it's a significant achievement. It's a new marketplace. It's the tallest wood structure on the West Coast, and so we're kind of proud of that. Um, but the company is essentially a 101-year-old wood products company that my grandfather started back in the day, and it's a legacy wood products firm that we've been trying to innovate and essentially keep relevant for the next 100 years. So we would like to be a 200-year-old company, continuing to create advanced wood products for the structural building marketplace for the next 100 years. So that's typically what we do.
Sweet. And how did you kind of end up in that position? Or it's a family business, I suppose, but
Well, yeah, so it is a family business, but at the end of the day, when I was graduating from college, I went to OES. I'm an OES graduate. I loved being at OES back in the day. I lived in the dorms. I'm actually currently having this conversation from my son's dorm room, which thankfully it's nice and clean for this period of time. But so glad to be an OES graduate. I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas after that for business administration and in finance with a minor in English studies. But then I always had the focus of coming back and working in the wood products industry. And the reason I did is because I honestly believe that the wood products industry is the most environmentally conscious and self-aware industry on earth. I don't think there's any industry that does things more environmentally beneficial than the wood products industry. And to say that every single portion of what we do, we create not only advanced structural wood products, but we create electricity, we create beneficial residual products. Every single product we produce off of a tree is useful to society and beneficial to society. So not only do we produce electricity, we produce structural products, we produce residual products that you see in your homes every single day, whether it's paper or it's potting soil or it's biochar, soil amendments. Everything that comes off of a tree is useful, beneficial to society, and we replant. And every single harvest is accompanied with restoration across every single piece of property. So we are looking to keep forest as forest forever. I think that the forest industry and the timber industry is one of the most environmentally conscious industries out there, and I'm just proud to be a part of it.
Do you have your own forest harvesting land that you harvest from?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, so we have about 18,000 acres of timberland, which is enough to provide about 15% of our annual usage on a sustained yield basis. So what sustained yield means is that what we grow is what we use. So we can provide about 15% of our annual usage in perpetuity off of our own private land. Unfortunately, in 2020, the Labor Day fires came through, and about 30% of our overall land base was decimated by the wildfires. not to get too political here, but at the end of the day, the federal government and the state government mismanages our forest lands out there, and the outcomes have been really bad for the last 30 years. We're essentially managing our public forest land for wildfires, as opposed to rural prosperity for Oregon, and for the health of our habitats and ecosystems in Oregon.
Yeah. Grant, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how the fires have devastated everywhere. Environmentally here, the Canadian fires affected our smoke and inhalation. We had, air quality warning days throughout the summer. So, I imagine that's true everywhere.
Yeah, so this is still a scary forest fire year. There's a lot of potential for the forest fires to really blow up, but 2020 was kind of a different animal. We lost 3 million acres of forest land in Oregon in 2020 due to devastating wildfires.
So is the land that you harvest from, is that the state forest land, or is that like private like property?
That's another good question. So we will essentially take fiber and trees from anyone that's going to make it available. Like I said, about 15% comes from our own private land, but typically about 60% comes from federal harvest. So federal harvest, I tell you what, anyone want to throw out a number here? What percent of Oregon does the federal government own and manage?
30.
Well, I mean, my
Oh,
guess.
20, 30.
They own 60% of our state,
Wow.
but they account for less than 8% of the overall harvest. So that essentially means that 60% of our state is left to neglect if there's no forest management that goes along with it. So in the past, the federal government accounted for 8 billion board feet of harvest in Oregon. Now they account for less than 400 million just due to the Northwest Forest Plan. And that's been the case for 30 years. So the vast majority of the public land in Oregon is not managed and is neglected, in my opinion. But I'm getting political as well.
I'm wondering, what's the actual process? So you have a tree. How do you like then take that and make that into wood in that kind of process?
So we're a little bit more complicated than what you would imagine for a typical lumber mill, in that for a lumber mill, they essentially take a tree that they've harvested and they pass it through a series of gang saws in order to rip it down into what would be a typical 2x6, 2x8, 2x10, 2x12, whatever type of dimensional lumber that goes into the exterior framing of a house. For us, we take a log and we break it down into 8-foot or 10-foot pieces, and then we peel it on a lathe, much like you would see with a roll of toilet paper. So we essentially roll off a block of wood like a roll of toilet paper, and we turn it into 1/8, 1/10, 1/6, whatever type of thickness that we need. And then we reconstitute it with advanced adhesives through a very complicated process in order to create it into a plywood panel. So, I mean, plywood you can look at on the outside or exterior of a building. That's what we do. But we also make a lot more advanced products where we take the density of each veneer, we extrapolate out what the structural capacity of each of those veneers are going to be, and we glue it back together into a much larger member. So for our mass timber products, we'll make something that's 12 feet wide, 48 feet long, 6 inches thick, and prefabricate that through a CNC machine, so it turns into a Lego block for a multi-story building. So it's all prefabricated when it arrives on site. They grab it with a crane, they drop it in place, and you've got a multi-story building that goes up pretty rapidly.
So you're replacing structural steel, correct?
Oh, yeah, structural steel, but also structural concrete. So that's
Sure.
really the big benefit, is that we don't have to wait for cure time for the structural wood for wood to come up to its structural capacity. So yeah, we'll replace concrete in multi-story buildings and allow for quicker installation and construction. Typically do the concrete cure time, but also the carbon sequestration of wood in the panels, because concrete is a very bad effluent emission when it comes to the environment, while wood sequesters carbon in the overall construction.
Has the demand for that wood structure, like structural support, been rising or decreasing lately?
Great question. So no, this is a new market. I mean, obviously we feel like we're at the forefront of a new and nascent market development here. We've done our first 19-story building. We have a 25-story building that's coming up, a couple more 20-story buildings after that. I think it's increasing every single year. We've quadrupled our sales and quadrupled our production through the facilities for this type of product. So our hope is that it will become the go-to for multi-story construction in the future.
Well, yeah.
How do you upscale your product to meet demand?
So right now we're only running one shift. We have, of course, a 3-shift capacity,
Right.
but we can essentially create a 19-story building within 5 weeks.
Hmm.
So 90 truckloads of material can go to a 19-story building. That's about, you know, six weeks of production for us. So we can create these buildings pretty quickly if it's designed and coordinated appropriately.
So you're like making an LVL type situation, but it's even more involved than that.
Great question. That's exactly it. We make it's classified as a LVL material, so it's structural composite lumber with density graded veneers and
Mhm.
very structurally design value accurate. And you know, that's typically what we're classified as, but just a very large LVL panel.
Yeah, 48 feet long would be, yeah.
Yeah. But we're the only ones in the world that are doing it right now. So it's kind of a
Well,
unique
congratulations.
aspect for us.
That's exciting, I imagine.
It's stressful, but yes, exciting too.
I
Well,
was wondering. Oh, sorry.
if you're on the forefront of developing a new technology and an industry standard, that's got to be complex as well as rewarding, though.
It is. So luckily we've had our commodity products and the rest of the materials that we can make that can support, you know, what would otherwise be a very bloody and very chaotic market environment. As you can imagine right now, we don't have projects scaled every single week through our production schedule. So we get surges of we need to complete projects at a period of time, and then we have downtime. So that's the difficult part is scheduling and logistics. So we go through fits and spurts of running 12-hour days, then twiddling our thumbs for another day or a week. And for a facility like ours, you know, it's essentially $80,000 opportunity cost every single day that the plant is not operating. So getting projects through is very important to us.
When you're
When you
creating a product, you use high pressure with electricity or steam, or how do you create it? In other words,
Yeah,
to bond all these
heat and
composites.
pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah, so our heat goes up to about 230 degrees Fahrenheit for high temp hot press and about 180 psi. So a
Okay.
lot of heat, a lot of pressure.
Sorry.
No, it's a
Oh,
great
yeah,
question. You know, at the end of the day, that's what I love about this industry, and I would really encourage anyone that's interested in wood products one way or another. There are tons of opportunities for this type of ecologically beneficial product out there for young people to be involved in it. And you cover every single aspect. I mean, you've got chemistry, you have biology, you've got, you know, great capitalistic intent and entrepreneurship, and there's great opportunities in this industry, especially for Oregon that has such a natural resource rich basis for wood products like we have. There's a ton of opportunity for young people in this industry.
I was wondering, like, when you get the trees from the federal land, do you just like pay, like, do you have a permit to do that, or do you pay per tree, or like, how does that system work?
So what they do is they define a harvest area and a harvest technique, and then you're allowed to essentially take a they define either so let me actually say that differently. So you can have a clear cut, so a regenerative harvest where they take all the trees off of a area of land. You have a thinning, they have a basal area requirement. So the federal government defines what type of timber sale it is, and
Yeah.
we have to live by that contract amount. So typically a timber sale duration is about 3 to 5 years with a
Mhm.
set volume. So we will purchase the contract to buy a volume of wood off of a set area within a period of time. And
I see.
then we have to provide all the services that go along with that. If a road needs to be built into that timber sale area, we pay for the road to go in. If additional set asides have to be made for spotted owl, marbled murrelet, or any other type of ecological species, we set that aside as well and perform the ecological benefits that are required under the contract. So it's all stipulated by the federal government, and we're just providing the services indicated on the contract.
I see. Okay, cool, interesting. Cool.
I'm wondering, how does the kind of structural integrity of wood compare to different materials, and kind of how is like the installation or insulation, sorry, and kind of how does that compare to other different materials?
Well, materials are all different in different ways. So you have benefits to one and negatives to the other, but for the most part, most of wood structural benefits are better. We can actually achieve the same sort of span ratings and design that steel can get to. Wood actually performs better than steel and concrete in fire. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but what you can imagine is if you take a large piece of wood and you put it in a fire, it has a predictive burn or a char rate. And so we provide that to architects, engineers, so they know exactly what the rate of burn is for a wood structure. When it comes to steel, steel loses its structural capacity at a much lower temperature, and with concrete, it all has rebar in it as well, so it swells, and so your concrete spalls at a lower temperature than than wood does as well. So on a whole, we found that wood has a lot better predictable structural capacity under fire than steel and concrete. So insulative, I'm a little bit biased on that one because I don't feel like we get all the insulative values that we are allowed under code. So you need to put a lot of insulation under wood products, but that's unfortunate because I don't think it's true.
Are your products used for foundations as well?
We have done some treated foundations. So the biggest concerns that you have with wood products when it touches a ground contact is you got insects and you have water and moisture, and so long-term contact and rotting that comes with wood. So we have done pressure treated products for wood contact and also insecticide. The USDA is actually asking us right now to try and develop products for implementation to rebuild Hawaii, particularly Lahaina. But the big problem with Lahaina and with Hawaii in general is termites, and so you need to be able to create a termite protected wood product. So that is a problem. That's something that we need to work on a little bit more. But locally, hopefully, I'm hoping if you guys get a chance to travel in the Portland airport, we're predominantly done with the Portland airport, but we provided almost all 9 acres of the roof that's installed over the Portland airport. That's scheduled to open up in June of 2024. So you guys can book your tickets and take a look at it.
So there's exposed trusses then, basically, that you have for the roof?
It is. Yeah, it's entirely an exposed. We did primarily the roof diaphragm, but there's also a wood lattice work that we were involved in, as well as the glulam trusses that support the roof.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And do you have projects, you said, at the Portland airport, and you were thinking about, Hawaii. Do you have projects like worldwide or in the US or more in the Northwest?
No, we shipped right now we just shipped a truckload yesterday to Washington, D.C. We've shipped to Saudi Arabia. We're shipping to Texas. So typically nationwide, Northwest and West Coast, California is a wonderful market because they recognize the embodied carbon benefits of using wood products to offset climate change and carbon emissions. So we are getting large markets in California, which is really beneficial.
So you're using the plywood product for flooring then, like 5/8, 3/4, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, our
For-
traditional commodity products, yes. But everything else, we'll create any structural element to a multi-story building.